What is up, guys? It's Mason once again, and today we are having a lesson video. And this is going to be a very special one because it's actually a community post from my favorite YouTuber, John Bartholomew. I've mentioned his name many times on stream, and if by chance he ever sees this video, thank you, John. I really do appreciate the videos that you made. I started watching you, I think, 2014, 2015, throughout my university time, and you took me from 1,000 rating to where I am now, 1,800 on chess.com, reaching 1,900 and 2,000 on lead chess. So thank you so much. We are going through your post, and if we miss anything, you can always let me know in the comments. I'd be very happy to hear from you. Okay, so basically this is a summary or a post covering his what or the lessons he learned basically from this lone wolf league that he played, which I recommend for many of you who want to improve in chess. It's a 30 plus 30 or 45 plus 45 league tournament, and it's played one round per week, so you can always like find a decent time to play with your opponent. um the videos of him playing this are on his channel, and I'll link them all in the description along with this community post. We're going to look at some of the points that he made, and I believe they are very good for many of us who are improving in chess, or maybe you're even advanced, but you maybe need a new perspective. I think they are very good points. So we're not looking at the whole thing, just about 2 or 3 points, and I'll show my games that relate to the things that he said. And yeah, let's get straight into it. So we are going to not start with point one. We are going to start with point two. And here he says, your mental dialogue is your anchor. Develop it. Now, I brought this point up in stream because I showed this on stream as well. If you don't know, I do stream Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays here on YouTube and on Twitch as well at 10:30 GMT or 6 a.m. EST. So I brought this up on stream, and someone was like, he's saying that thinking is better than not thinking. And that's like really dumbing it down, because he's saying much more than that. He's given a framework for thinking, right? We all do think, but he's trying to show what you should consider when you are thinking, or how you should structure your thinking in order to maximize efficiency and reduce flaws, or to reduce error, to reduce mistakes, right? So so we'll just basically look at it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So he says the consistency and quality of your thought process determines your success in chess. The consistency, sometimes as a chess player, when you get to a point when you are winning, it's very easy to lose focus. I used to use the Chess Master Grandmaster software, and there was one of the topics where Josh Waitkin talked about, I think he was playing against an opponent and he realized he was winning, and he started thinking about the prize money and how he was going dancing with his fiance or something like that. And he almost let the game slide. So the consistency and the quality, right, what you consider of your thought process determines your success in chess. The exact questions you ask yourself, the order you answer these queries, and their relevance to the position in front of you may vary. In other words, you can't have the same set of questions for every position. Depending on the position in front of you, or depending on the plans that you are looking for, or depending on the threats that exist in the position, the things you are going to look at are going to differ. They are not, you can't say that every position I'm going to ask the exact same questions every single position. Some questions are not relevant in certain positions, right? A very simple one is, for example, if you were to castle in a like very normal good game, not blundering, messing things up, if you were to castle, you may not consider your king's safety for a while, right? But in certain situations, you would consider your king's safety in your thought process, right? Sometimes there won't be much to talk to yourself about. Example, when you have a forced move or recapture. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is to cultivate and follow some form of mental dialogue that makes sense to you. Doing so structures your thoughts, keeps you focused on solving the task in front of you, and cuts down on mistakes. So basically, he's talking about have certain things you would consider in a chess position, right? have a checklist of things that are important to you that you will check in a chess position. It doesn't have to be every position, but at least have certain things that you consider. So, for example, in certain points of a chess game, you can consider the pawn structure. At certain points of the chess game, you can consider the piece quality, right? Close position, open position, that kind of thing. Do I need knights? Do I need bishops? Those kinds of things, right? At least having certain things that you look at, it's easier, helps you avoid making mistakes than just what do I want to do, that kind of thing. Having things you look at to ensure that your next move is of a good quality is what he's trying to point out here. Right? When you don't have things that you look out, for example, like beginners, when you don't have things that you look out for, you are more likely to end up with the wrong move or with the wrong idea or with the wrong thought process, right? I always tell beginners that sometimes they are beginners not because they are bad, but because they lack information, right? You make decisions based on the information that you have. So if you don't have a good framework of what do I have to consider during my turn, you are always going to end up making the wrong decisions or the wrong moves, right? Okay, so he says that most chess players aren't really thinking in an organized fashion. He does present um, a thinking method like this. He calls it the Socratic method. We'll look at that. He says they are mostly reacting or bouncing around, but we want to retain our process and equilibrium regardless of the calm or chaos of the position in front of us, right? So because of that framework that you have, no matter the kind of position that you have, you still be okay. You may address a position differently. You may start from the end. You may start from the beginning, depending on whatever framework you think of. It doesn't have to be in a specific structure, but having at least that will help you, right? So it says you eventually get to the point where this internal dialogue is as natural as breathing. I think I'm at this point, right? Then he talks about how analyzing and annotating your games before looking at the engine is a powerful means of understanding your own mental dialogue. I won't talk much about this, but basically he's teaching you how you can build that thought process, how you can gain that information so that you can add it up, right? So you analyze the position and you start asking yourself reasonable questions that you couldn't ask yourself during the game, probably due to like time pressure or something, right? So let's look at this Socratic method that he presents. And this is the method I think majority of chess coaches present. I do that. I also do this a lot. You can check my how to analyze video. And the first question you always ask yourself is, what was the point of my opponent's last move? I think for every chess player, this is the first thing you always have to ask yourself. Why did my opponent make his move? And you realize, and sorry, the reason why I really love this is because I think that for most chess players, you already know what you want to do, right? Let's say you're even starting the chess game with white. You know the opening you want to go for, you know the ideas of that opening, and you know how to maneuver that opening to a successful end. So basically, your plans are well decided, well beyond the game, right? And these plans can last for like 20 moves of the game. So rather than being overly concerned about what you want to do, the only thing that is unsolved is what your opponent is going to do, right? You have to consider, what is my opponent trying like to do? So always asking yourself, what is the point of your opponent's last move, is a way to help determine whether your plans are going to work or whether you have to disengage from your plans and solve your opponent's threats, right? So before anything else, I try to identify what my opponent is up to. If I were my opponent, why would I have just played that move? Number two, what options should I consider in reply? So now if I identify the threats of your opponent, if it's something that you can ignore, you push your plans. If it's something you can't ignore, you find a way to resolve it so that you can continue to push your plans. I hope I'm not hitting the mic a lot, right? I'm feeling so free using my hands right now. Yeah. So he says that I like immediately listing at least one to two possibilities. Now, that is like the sweet spot to ensure that you can go, like you can hone in on your thought process and go like as deep as possible, right? If you think about so many possibilities, your calculation becomes scattered, and you are often likely to make mistakes due to like move orders and over calculation, right? So sometimes you just try and limit the options to about one to two, maybe three, is a very good way of I mean, the possibilities you are considering must be like important. They must be the most relevant possibilities of the position. But to have just a few possibilities that you can consider is a very good way to ensure that like you can really get a good response rather than thinking about all the 50 million things that can happen. I still let my mind wander freely, but having a couple of candidate moves gives me a useful roadmap for calculation and evaluation. So basically, he's also saying that don't get too stuck on those two moves. If you have to break out of them, break out of them. Unless my reply is false, this is almost always the most time consuming stage. And then finally, I'm ready to play a move. Is it safe? Am I blundering something? Am I on defending something? That is what you have to consider before you make a move. So that's what he calls the blunder check. You take a good look around to make sure you're not missing anything, and only then do you execute the move. Now he gives games and everything, but I'm going to use myself here. And I'm taking this game. Wow, I've gone too far ahead. I'm taking this game that I played in the nationals, the 2023 National Chess Championship. So I'm playing against this guy, Emily Richardson, and then we get into this position. There's so much pressure coming on me, right? You can see this whole knight and queen are really putting like a lot of pressure on me here. I'm not so free to move, and my bishop is kind of like stuck to the back rank. It's not so bad, but it's kind of stuck to the back rank. So I decided to play this move, b3. And my point of playing this move is that I want my opponent to jump back with the knight, give me some breathing space, develop the bishop, and maybe start something on my opponent. But here my opponent plays castles kingside. And then I have to think. So now we are applying John Bartholomew's Socratic method. What was my opponent's last move and what was the reason behind it? If you don't have a framework for thinking and you are like, oh, my plan is to push this so that the knight goes back. If he doesn't go back, then I capture the knight. If that's your thought process, you are about to lose this game, right? Granted, black is definitely better, but yeah. Taking the knight leads you on a one-way street to just lose the game, right? So I asked myself, why did he castle and not save the knight? I realized that, okay, if I do take the knight, I open up the files up and my opponent can really go harm on me, right? He can really get a very aggressive attack on me, which I may not survive. So I noticed that. And now the next question is, okay, so he knows that, but it should go, his mindset should go beyond just this. I don't think his plan was, oh, I'm going to take the pawn. That couldn't be his plan. There should be something more to this plan. Then I begin to notice this diagonal. And I realized that if this pawn doesn't exist and then there's a rook on a8, then I'm in trouble here. So how is my opponent going to execute this? I see a5, a4, captures. If I capture this way, I'm still in trouble. So more or less, I would have to capture this way. Then rook a8 with the ideas of maybe queen to a8 or rook to a8. So I noticed that was my opponent's plan. So that's point like 1, identifying your opponent's plan. Now point 2 is finding your candidate moves. The first thing that sticks up to me is just the queen here, but I wasn't so like sure or confident about the queen here. I don't want to get into the analysis of this game. We are just trying to apply what was said here. So I rather thought of, is there a way? I'm already, regardless of what I do, my position is still bad, but is there a way that, or slightly bad, is there a way that I can send the threat back to my opponent? Is there a way that I can make my opponent now start to think rather than always be on the responsive end? And that's basically what I looked at. And my idea had to do with, you can see mine as well, h4, h5. Now the question is, do I have the time to do that? So now we found the second thing. We've seen our candidate moves. Now the question is, can we play that move and it doesn't cause us any harm? So this was how I asked myself it. How long does it take me to connect to this pawn, right? 1, 2, 3. How long does it take for my opponent to kill me, basically? 1, 2, 3. I would have to respond. 4, 5, and then 6. Wait, sorry, I supposed to be 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So I'm dead on move 5, basically. If you can see it like that, I'm dead on move 5. So move 4 is my last. So I have 4 moves. What can I do with these 4 moves? and I looked at it, h4, h5, I take here. If he's at this point, his rook would be here. I do have takes here, which can help me out. Basically, is what I was kind of like thinking about in the position here. I consider to see if it's safe. I see that I can fulfill my plan before my opponent, and hence I go h4. My opponent goes a5, I go h5. He comes in, takes, but he responded to mine first. I expected him to take here first, but he responded to my threat first, which helped me solve the position. And from here, white is actually better, or white has survived the worst, and white is actually better. Doubled isolated pawns, backward pawn here, right? Isolated pawn here. My pawn structure is much better than my opponent. I'm down the pawn, but he has enough weaknesses that I can get my pawn back. Unfortunately, I lost this game because I suck at endgames, but you get the point. Having this framework of thinking is what helped me get out of this situation, rather than, oh, knight is hanging and I'm in trouble, right? Number two, this is from my opponent's perspective, in a sense. My opponent should have realized that this attack does not work, right? He funny enough, I met him at another tournament and he still keeps thinking that this was working. Like, he felt like he blundered somewhere. And I've looked at this position like to death. Like, I've really looked at this position because he kept saying that I blundered some, and everything that the engine recommended, I saw it. So I saw it on the board. So I wonder why he's still convinced that this position was winning. But basically, my opponent has started a very strong attack on me. I realized that this rook is going to be a very annoying piece, and my queen being here is going to be not good. So the plan for me was to shuffle my queen away and then put the rook on this square rather. Like, that's safer for me and I don't lose a lot. And once I see that, I realize that my position is safe. So I go rook, he comes in, I shuffle the queen back, he brings the other rook, and then we go for this position. We get this trade, he brings the queen forward, and then I look at this position and I ask myself, what can my opponent do to me here? And the answer was nothing. So when nothing can be done, what do? I develop, right? But my opponent did not consider this. It was actually the moment I made this move is when my opponent actually realized that his plan was not working, because he did not consider my moves, and he did not consider whether his moves were safe or not. All he had was, I'm coming to attack you on this way, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, right? Of course, I've looked at this and I saw this whole trick. What is happening? What is happening? I'm playing the move, it's not working. I'm playing the move, it's not working. But the point is, if I come in here, he just comes in here and he wins my queen. So the whole point here is to play pawn push and let him take, right? So you play pawn push, queen takes, rook takes, and then you see that white is just having a field day, right? So I saw that this was what was going to happen, but my opponent was so honed in on attacking me, and he thought his attack was going to work, that he did not see it, and this is how the position backfired against him. If you want to actually see the full game, you can check my President's Cup recap. I really talk about this in depth, but this is just to show you how having these thought processes can help you out. Let's go to point 3. If you are dead set on a continuation, you probably ought to play it. So this is something that happens to us overthinkers. I'm an overthinker. I don't know if I got it from John Bartholomew, but I'm an overthinker. I overconsider things. And this tournament, the 2023 President's Cup that I played in, that's actually one of my best tournaments ever. And I realized the reason I played well in that tournament was because my plan was simply play a move, leave the board. Don't overthink it. Play a move and leave the board. That was it. And I did better there. So he gives this position and he tries to explain this whole thing. I keep missing the... where is it? Oh, I've gone too far back. Sorry. Yeah, so we get to this position. Sorry. We get to this position and his opponent plays the move a6. And to see a move like a6, it's basically hints the fact that your opponent might want to play b5, right? A minority attack on these pawns, if you want to call it that. So John Bartholomew is like, okay, a4, a5. Like, sorry, your opponent plays this, you want to play this just to disrupt or to prevent them from going for the idea. But then suddenly something occurs to him. If I play a4, my opponent can go with his knight to the back, trying to, I don't know why the moves are not being made. I don't know if it's an internet issue. But the knight would come back, and if the knight comes back, then a trade will ensue, and now you lose the knight's defense of the b5 square, and possibly this attack is going to work because now maybe there's a bishop here, right? So now b5 makes more sense. That is basically what he was talking about. And then so basically he was over contemplating on his opponent playing this move and trying to find resolutions to it to ensure that playing a4 is the best move. So he spent quite like a bit of time on this move. And what he's saying here is that if you have made up your mind on one line, right, you've reached the second stage, you've looked at candidate moves, and you are so set on this move, right? With the way you're thinking, you can tell that this is the move you want to play. You're so set on playing this move, and there's something you can't quite figure out. Just play the move and leave it to your opponent to solve it, right? Don't try and solve it for your opponent. Leave it to your opponent to solve it, especially when you think that you are overthinking the position. And sometimes that's just it helps save time for later troubles. Oftentimes, what happens is because you're trying to figure out this one thing, you end up burning like 10-20 minutes off your clock, and then in a much better position where you need more time, that time is not available, and you are then liable to making miscalculations or mistakes. So try to avoid that. If you realize that you've settled on a move, like you've looked at moves and there's one move you just keep contemplating on, right? It doesn't have so much risk. Just play the move and let your opponent solve it. The funny thing is, his opponent does not play this. His opponent goes knight b7, right? And the moves are still not being played. I just don't understand why the moves are not. His opponent plays knight d7, right? And I oftentimes realize that that is what happens to me whenever I'm playing and I start overthinking about a position. My opponent very rarely plays what I'm thinking. The same 2013 President's Cup, I played against a guy named Vitaly Koman, and you can check my video on that. I just couldn't tell what that guy was doing. Same with my game against Akwanda in the previous President's Cup. I just couldn't tell what they were doing, and I was over contemplating other ideas they could play. And as I kept doing that, I was burning clock, right? But of course, I was lucky in those games. But yeah, you get the point of that. So when you've reached the second stage of contemplating candidate moves and you seem to be set on one, it's decent, but there's something maybe very small that you can't seem to shake off. Sometimes you just have to let your opponent do the deciding whether or not it's true. And oftentimes when you leave the decision to your opponent, like I said, you realize that they either blunder or they don't make the move you were expecting, and you just give yourself a sigh of relief. And finally, this is more of like there are other more important. Oh, I'm sorry, they are all good, but I feel like the other ones are much more important. But this point, I think, is a more of a psychological one. And if you know me and my chess, I struggle with chess because of my psyche, right? The way I think, I sometimes become very emotional. My brother always says this, that the moment I lose a game, that's the end of my tournament. And that's basically been my trend, right? I enter a tournament, the moment, it's maybe the first round I can lose because that one, you know, the way it's rated, right? But the subsequent games, if I'm to lose the subsequent games, like any of the subsequent games, that's the end of my tournament. I end up losing because I can't get the loss out of my mind. And oftentimes, the way I see my opponents, like there's this thing where I think that no matter what, whoever I'm playing is better than me. It's a very funny mindset that I have. So sometimes I struggle with my psyche. So this, I think, is also good because it's a psychological thing. Keep an open mind to maximize your results. Now, he gives this position where he had a win, but he was seeing a draw. Because, I mean, when you see, for example, opposite colored bishops, the first thing you often think about is the fact that it's a drawn endgame. Of course, there are exceptions to it, but here he saw a very reasonable continuation by which his opponent secures the draw. And his argument here is that if he had kept his mind open that there is more than a draw in this position, he would have won this game. I'm tackling it from like this side, that even when you are playing against an opponent you think is better than you, once you get a stronger position, try and play it out. That is one of the ways that you actually become a stronger player. Don't be too safe. Sometimes it's good. Like there's a draw, take the draw. Don't risk your point. I get all that. But if you want to become a good player, sometimes you have to play the positions you are afraid to play, or the position that you think your opponent might trick you or something in. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. I played this game against Ghana's. He plays in the national team. I am Akwanda. He's 1900. I'm 1600 here, and we got to this position. It's a very long game. I played with all my heart. I almost messed up, but then eventually I get to this position. Right? I get my king. This is the end of it. Yeah. So I get my king here, and then I play rook d to h3. Now the position has been very bad for me from the beginning. Right? It's been very bad for me from the beginning. But finally, we get to this position where it's a draw. But if anyone can do something, it's white. It's white. White is the one who can do anything in this position. For me, I look at this position and I'm like, yeah, it's an end game. I suck at end games. If I play this end game against this guy, I'm going to lose. I don't try the position. And it's something I do. Anytime I realize that it's a drawn position, even if I see that I have a chance, I don't take that chance. I rather just go straight for the draw because I'm afraid, right? But to become a better chess player, you have to take these positions, right? Like I always complain about rook and pawn end games. These days, one of the things I've been trying to do is trade quickly into a rook and pawn end game and try to win it, or try to draw. If it's a draw, let me ensure that it's a draw. If it's a win, let me try and win it. By actively involving yourself in these things is how you can switch a loss into a draw, or a loss or a draw into a win. And that's the genius of Magnus Carlsen, right? Squeezing water out of stone. He plays drawn, like theoretically drawn positions, and his opponents have to prove it, right? I'm the one who's having an initiative. Sorry, I'm hitting the mic. I'm the one who's having the initiative. Prove that the position is a draw. If the engine says it's a draw, if theory says it's a draw, prove it, right? And oftentimes, or quite a number of times, his opponents are not able to prove it, and that's how he's able to win. So you need to have that mindset of, let me try, right? There are many things I could try b4, I could try a4, and try, play the position, and you can tell whether. And then by doing that, by opening your mind to the possibilities that exist on the board, you can win more games. So it's more of a psychological point, and that's what I find very endearing about it. I really do like that. This I think is the if I have any similarity to Gotham chess in anything, it's this. It's the psyche, the way we see games. Yeah. If you want to know what I have in common with John Bartholomew's, it's the Scandi and it's time management. It's overthinking. Yeah. So yeah, there are other points that he has here. He talks about time control that you use for training. He talks about time management. Then he talks about the fact that modern day players have a bigger opening repertoires compared to those days. So being a specialist may not be the best idea. That's like an attack at me. Let me just quickly point that out. I'm almost done with the video, but let me just quickly point that out. He 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 takes a jab at me as a landing player, and it was quite funny. He says that the vast majority of chess enthusiasts play online games against random opponents, so the chances that you'll be outed for spamming the landing every white game are low. A little dig at the landing players out there, and that's me, right? I'm a landing player to that. You've watched the streams, you know me already. Yeah, so I think this is a good read, and I would recommend that all of you take a gander at it. I was talking very fast because I wanted to keep this within 20 minutes, but as I'm looking here, it's 29 minutes. But I hope this video helped you out. If you are like beginning and you are trying to get into understanding what the stronger players do, like what happens in their mind, what they see, right? This I think will help you get a hang of it, right? Like, and also I'll still mention how far you can think and how relevant your considerations are based on your information. Some things in chess you can only learn if they are shown to you or if you suffer them, right? Opposition, Zugzwang, things about pawn structures, outposts, chess elements. These things, you may not know them by just playing the game, but until someone reveals that information to you, you would never consider them. So focus on increasing your information base and work on it one at a time. Don't try and consume so much information. Take it one at a time. It will really, really, really help you out. So that is it for me. I won't say anymore. Thank you so much. If you did enjoy this video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.